Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be talking about secondary metabolites.
Very cool.
I think this is something that a lot of our listeners are probably interested in,
Yeah, they're
have maybe heard about, but maybe don't have all of the
Mhm.
nuances.
Mhm.
So we have some great definitions and characteristics of secondary metabolites here.
Right. So basically, secondary metabolites are organic compounds that are produced by organisms.
Okay.
These could be plants, fungi, bacteria, animals.
Got it.
And the thing about them is they're not directly involved in the normal growth development or reproduction of the organism.
Okay, so they're not the essentials.
Yeah, not the essentials. So if you're thinking about like the essentials, you're thinking about primary metabolites, like
Right.
your carbohydrates, your amino acids, lipids, and nucleic acids.
So the building blocks?
Yeah, the building blocks, exactly.
All right, cool.
And the thing about secondary metabolites is while they're not essential for, let's say, survival in a petri dish or immediate survival, they actually play a really important role in the ecological roles and survival of these organisms under specific conditions.
Interesting. So that's what makes it so interesting is that it's not essential for life in a very basic sense, but once you look at the organism in its environment,
Right.
then all of a sudden these things become very important.
Exactly. And they're important for things like, interactions with other organisms, defense mechanisms, and just kind of like survival under, like I said, specific circumstances.
So there's sort of like specialized tools
Yeah, specialized.
to be used in certain situations.
Precisely, yeah.
So when are these tools generally being deployed?
So that's also very interesting.
Okay.
Primary metabolites, are produced during the growth phase of an organism. So while it's actively growing,
Okay.
secondary metabolites are typically produced a little bit later during what we call the stationary phase of growth or idiophase.
Right.
And this is often triggered by things like nutrient limitation or environmental stress. So it's really kind of like a response.
So not constant production, but more of a
Exactly.
when needed.
Exactly. It's like a survival strategy
Okay.
for specific circumstances.
So it's like a response to the environment, almost like a
Yeah, exactly.
stress response.
Exactly. And that kind of leads to one of the things that's so remarkable about secondary metabolites, which is their chemical diversity. So we're talking about, a huge array of different chemical structures that are really complex and diverse.
Wow.
And some examples of these are alkaloids, terpenoids, phenolics, and polyketides.
So it's a whole chemical playground.
It is a chemical playground.
Right.
And this diversity is really what allows for the wide range of biological activities that these compounds possess.
Okay.
So like if you think about Taxol, which is actually a secondary metabolite from the Pacific yew tree, this has been developed into a really important chemotherapy drug.
Oh, wow.
So you can kind of see how...
So there are medicinal applications
Exactly.
for these people.
Yeah. And sometimes unexpected applications.
Yeah.
So this kind of chemical diversity leads to all sorts of interactions in the environment. Things like defense communication between organisms,
Right.
attraction pollinators, all sorts of really cool things.
So another layer to this is that these compounds are generally produced
Right.
much smaller quantities
Yes,
than the primary metabolites.
exactly. They're generally produced in much smaller quantities. And that makes sense, right? Because they're specialized tools. They're not bulk resources, so...
So that must make them a little harder to study.
Yeah, it does. It makes them a little bit more challenging to study because, extracting them, isolating them, characterizing them requires a lot more effort.
Yeah. You have to find them first.
You got to find them
in these tiny quantities.
Exactly.
But the potential benefits are obviously huge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the sources also point out that these compounds are often very specific
Yes.
to certain species or groups of organisms.
Exactly. So, you won't find the same secondary metabolite in every single organism.
Right.
They're often specific to, certain species genera or even taxonomic groups.
Interesting.
And this really kind of highlights their specialized roles and how they've evolved as kind of tailored solutions for particular environments. So it's kind of like nature's fine-tuning, So, for example, you might have a specific flower that produces a unique scent.
Right.
To attract a very specific pollinator.
Yeah.
And that's likely due to a secondary metabolite that's unique to that flower.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So to just kind of recap quickly, you're saying that secondary metabolites are these non-essential compounds.
Right.
But they're actually vital for survival.
Exactly.
In the real world.
In the real world, yeah.
They're produced strategically in these smaller amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this incredible chemical variety, and often they're unique to certain species.
Exactly. Yeah, they give us this really fascinating glimpse into kind of the intricate chemical interactions that are happening all around us,
Mm-hmm.
that are really shaping the natural world.
That's really cool. And it kind of makes you wonder, given how complex this world of secondary metabolites is,
Yeah.
what other unseen chemical conversations are going on
Right.
around us right now that are influencing our lives in
Absolutely.
ways that we don't even understand?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. So, something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we will catch you all next time.
See ya.